Okay, y'all, if I'm gonna talk about their downfall, I'm gonna talk about their rise and everything. So as y'all know, I did a video when the Joe Budden podcast, when Rory and Mal decided, well, no, see, no, hold on, let me not say that, because that's the point of contention for them. When everybody went their separate ways for a little bit, I did a video on that, and I did a video explaining, in my opinion, and let me start this video off again by saying, everything that I'm going to say in this video is my opinion. It's how I took in what they said. It may not necessarily, I could be completely freaking wrong, but it's how I interpreted what they said. So please do not hop in my comments, hop in my mentions. If I did not quote them correctly, verbatim, I don't care. They don't pay me to do this. So again, this is my opinion. I don't understand why I have to constantly come on my own channel and say that this is my fucking opinion. But anyway, my opinion, my interpretation of the JBP boys, as they say, is back in business. Okay, so let's kind of go through. So as y'all know this, because I got the episode playing again because I wanted to like rehear it just to get my points across. But anyway, so I went to go on to watch the Joe Budden podcast. What was it, Wednesday? Because that's normally when they drop. And I seen the picture of all of them there, and I'm thinking that they bullshitting, because a lot of times, like in the beginning, they was putting pictures of like all of them up there, but it wasn't really all of them up there. But anyway, so they're all there, so I'm like, oh, okay, so we about to have a conversation. So let's get into the conversation. Okay, so I did not expect for them to go in, like to go as in depth as they did about everything that happened, but they did. So when they first started off, Joe was like, look, you know, I'm always the one talking, so I want to be able to give y'all the floor to say what y'all need to say. I'm going to say this from the very off front. Joe looked annoyed. I'm talking about the entire time that they were talking. Joe looked so annoyed. Like he was just so frustrated and aggravated and very much so annoyed throughout this whole entire time of both of them talking. He seemed very annoyed. So let's just kind of get into it, okay? So, Rory goes on his whole little spiel. The reason I don't have any notes for that is because Rory in the beginning was kind of like dipping and dodging what was happening. He was like, I mean, we had a disagreement. We talked about it. Apparently, they all went to Joe's house like the week before. Everybody sat down. They talked about it. They got their feelings out or whatever. And he was like, it's not really that big of a deal. It's not like a really big headline. Rory was really using like his media training to downplay the fuck out of the situation. That's what I noticed, that he was really trying to downplay the situation. To y'all, it's not a big deal, but to people who watch this show, it is a big deal. So it is a headline. And you can say as much as you want, oh, I don't know what headline to give y'all. There's massive headlines that if somebody really wanted to, they could pull from watching this whole little interaction between y'all. Just saying. So let's, whatever. Rory was bullshitting around the mulberry bush, right? So we get to Mal, okay? Mal pretty much says that at the end of the day, he felt like there was no respect from Joe in the friendship. Now, I said on my last video in regards to this that I think Joe seems to me like, okay, sometimes Joe seems self-aware, but sometimes he does not. It's like a 50-50, because sometimes Joe will say like, I know I'm X, Y, Z in the third, but then sometimes he will completely like act like nothing ever even happened, or he doesn't act a certain way when he does. I said before in my last video, Joe is obviously a hard person to be friends with. Take the business side out of it. It is obvious. It is very telling. Actually, we'll leave the business side into it too. I think that it's hard to be friends with Joe Budden and to work with Joe Budden, just from looking at his past and his record and the way he interacts with other people, the way that he communicates. Now, of course, he's gotten better, and I can't hold him, you know, to his past all the time. Of course, he's grown and he's definitely got better in a lot of areas, but he still has a lot of work to do. And I think Joe underestimates how much it takes to actually be his friend, how much it takes to actually work with him and to work around him. One of the main things that I said in my last video that I stand by is something that I noticed that Joe does all the time. Joe cuts people off all the time. Joe will say, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Like even when the first episode, when they came back and him and Parks, like, well, mostly him was talking about everything that happened, that he talked for a good hour and some change, and then said, Parks, okay, Parks, you go, you talk. And the minute that Parks started talking, Joe cut him off and then went on a rant for another 45 minutes. Joe has a really bad tendency to cut people off. And I can understand as a friend how that will probably make you feel like, well, you feel like what you got to say is more important than me. And academics can jump on that right there and claim that that's the case, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think people who watch the Joe Budden podcast like all three of them together. Yes, Joe is technically the main person, but Rory and Mal, I really do think that they do bring something to the table. Now, I don't really agree with a lot of the shit that Mal said, because to me, Mal be saying like the dumbest shit in the world, and I don't really necessarily always agree with Rory, but I agree with Rory a whole lot more than I do Mal, which is weird because Rory is the white man on this show. But that's neither here nor there. Let's move on, okay? So then, Parks pretty much said that he understood where Mal was coming from, because this is, again, going back to the conversation that they had the first time that they came back without Rory and Mal. Joe referenced the conversation that him and Mal had, and Parks said, if go back and watch the episode, Parks said in the episode, he said, no, Joe, you crossed the line. You said some shit that you ain't have no business saying, and I can definitely understand. And Joe was like, well, I don't feel like I went too far. He said, no, you did. You definitely did. So what Mal is referring to is that conversation, and we'll touch on in a minute what Joe actually said to him, because in the beginning he wasn't saying what specifically Joe said that pissed him off. He just said, I felt like after that conversation a lot of things came out, and I also feel like, because this is all spitball off the top of my head, y'all, to a degree, I also feel like after this whole situation you could tell that Mal and Joe will never be be friends the way that they were before, because Joe is now looking at Mal a certain way, and I could definitely, just like how I said Joe seemed annoyed by Mal, Mal seemed like he was kind of done with Joe, like he's just kind of like, not that like I'm not cool with you, but like I know exactly where we stand. Like I thought we was better than that, but clearly we're not, and now that I know that we're not, it is what it is. We just gonna keep it on the real surface level. That's what I got from Mal's body language and the way he was speaking throughout this whole thing. Now, let me make this clear, because I just watched Academics' little Twitch live or whatever, and he was like, oh, they was both mad because, you know, Joe brought new people on. That's not true. Mal said that he was mad about that, and Rory said multiple times that he did not care about that. He understood why Joe did it. So let's go back on to Mal. So Mal said he felt the way. He doesn't have any problem with Ice or Ish, but he felt a way that Joe brought on people to do the show. He said the reason why he felt like that is because he said the same amount of energy that you put into like finding these new people and bringing them on is the same energy that you could have put into fixing what was going on with us. And instead of you trying to fix what was going on with us, you decided to put your energy towards trying to find people to replace us. And the way I look at that is, to be real, like, to be real, like, about the whole situation, and it's kind of even what I said on my video initially, doing like my first video initially, this all really comes down to y'all not knowing y'all business and y'all not having y'all business in order. And when I mean y'all, I mean Rory and Mal. Y'all think that y'all have more stake and more say-so in the Joe Budden podcast and brand than y'all actually do. That, to me, is pretty much where the problem stems from. Now, we'll get to what Joe said in a minute about that. Mal also said that he felt like he should have been part of the conversation to... Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry, he get excited when my boyfriend comes home. My dog does. Anyway, so yeah, so he said that he felt like he should have been part of the conversation about whether or not Rory left. And that is something that they brought up to before. Park said that on the episode when they came back, that Mal felt some type of way. He felt like that should have been a conversation between all of them, okay? And he also said that he feels like, back to the whole thing about having people on there, he was like, I feel like granted, anybody's replaceable, he said, but for you to actually go and replace us, that pretty much says a lot about what you think about us. Now let's just pause right there, right? Let's just sit on that for a second. Here's the thing, Mal. It goes back, to me, it boils down to something simple, which is something that Joe said later, and Mal tried to disregard. What does your contract say? I understand that y'all are friends and stuff, but there's a difference between friendship in business. Now, yes, you are in a business with your friends, but that does not mean that now everything that y'all have in writing in the contract is just null and void. That's not how this fucking works. It's really, I really feel like this situation is pretty fucking simple. Is Rory and Mal's name on any paperwork that says that they have a stake in the Joe Budden podcast brand, period? Is there anywhere in any paperwork where it says Joe owns a third, Rory owns a third, and Mal owns a third? If it does not say that anywhere, if it just simply says that Joe 100% owns all of this shit, and y'all two are just, no shade, but employees of the show, but y'all just so happen to be best friends with him, and so he just so happens to let y'all in on certain things or to give y'all a little leeway on certain things, then that's one thing. But if we're talking about pure paperwork, in our reality, Mal, although it would have been nice, I guess, from a friend's point of view, for all of y'all to have that conversation, in our reality, it's really not your decision whether or not Rory comes on this show. If on paper and legally and in business, Joe is the one that owns this business. As long as Joe's name is at the top of the deck, if he owns 100% all of this, then Joe can do whatever the fuck he wants to do. He can tell you, Rory, Parks, Savon, Screaming, all of y'all to get the fuck out. Because guess what? He owns it. It's his brand. Yes, y'all built it up together. That's wonderful. That's lovely. But if y'all names is not on any paperwork, and what I really don't understand, specifically coming from Mal, is now he said that Biggs is his manager, which I never knew that, but I guess that makes sense. I don't understand how Biggs is your manager, and at no point in time was there ever a conversation in the 7 years of this show about ownership when it comes to this podcast, especially at least over the past, like, pretty much ever since Joe, like, left Everyday Struggle. I don't understand how that hasn't been a conversation, how that has never came up. Now, I don't know if Joe is just splitting up the money equally anyway, so maybe I didn't think about it, but if y'all are real businessmen and your fucking brother is Biggs, okay? Your brother is Biggs, and you didn't stop to think about the business and what your ownership in something is, when I will agree wholeheartedly with Act when he says, y'all, Rory and Mal in particular, y'all sit on this show and y'all love to talk about people and how they handle their business, and oh, you not owners, and oh, y'all not paying attention to this, and Rory always talking about, oh, how this is breaking down in publishing, but y'all don't got y'all own shit together. It's the same way I feel about Joe, how I'm to this day, I'm still pissed that Joe, when it come for Crystal from the Read with Kid Fury and Crystal, and try to come for them and be like, oh, y'all podcasts out here, when they had first got their show on oh damn it, what was the fucking network that they was on? It's with the little lightning. Fuse, there we go. When they first got their show on Fuse, hold on y'all. When they had first got their show on Fuse, and then Joe want to jump on Twitter and say some shit like, oh, y'all out here, when y'all podcasts out here doing bad business and y'all don't know what the fuck y'all doing, pretty much sending shots at Kid Fury and Crystal. And then a couple months, literally like 2 months later, he's on the fucking air yelling and screaming about how his deal with Spotify wasn't right. Y'all need to really, this is how I really feel about this shit. Mind your own business when it comes to other people's businesses, because clearly y'all shit ain't all together either. So when it comes to somebody's business, mind your own business and pay attention to your own shit and see what the fuck you got going on, versus y'all sitting here weekly, not that they sit here weekly and do it, but I'm trying to give academics not his flowers, but I do understand where academics is coming from, because if y'all don't know, these academics been going in on Rory and Mal since this whole situation happened. I just watched his Twitch that he did, I think like yesterday, like a couple hours ago, and he was making valid points, and he was like, the main reason I'm going in is because y'all love to talk about everybody else. So I do agree with that. And like I said, it really just comes down to the business and to the paperwork, which is what Joe ended up talking about later, okay? Now, Rory says pretty much that he was, and I think he said like the airport or whatever, and he got a text from Joe pretty much saying like, you need to take the next couple podcasts off. Now, he said he didn't like it, but he said, all right, cool, I understand. And then come to find out later on that I guess he must have Rory must have texted Joe back like, why or something like that. And then Joe sent the same thing that he said again, but he sent it with exclamation points. So then Rory screenshotted that and sent it to Ma. So that's how Ma ended up finding out. And so, they pretty much said that that's pretty much how the whole situation just kind of like started out or whatever. They end up all, like I said, eventually going and talking at Joe's house or whatever. And the way I look at it is they all keep saying, because Maul's favorite word of this episode was respect. It's just about respect. It's just about respect. It's just about respect. It's just about respect. It ain't even all about that. It ain't even all about the business stuff, because that stuff could be cleared up. It ain't even about the business stuff. It ain't about the business stuff. But he did end up saying later, after all that respect, he did say, well, it's about respect and being transparent in the business, because why didn't we know this? And why didn't we know that? And why didn't we know this? And again, I'm sorry, but I have to bring it back to y'all. How are y'all supposed to be bosses and businessmen and stuff like that, but y'all was on a show for years and didn't know what the fuck was going on financially? So if I'm Joe, I'm just going to be real. If I'm Joe, because I think I said this to you, I think I brought this up before. Joe has said before in the past that when it comes to Rory and all that, they don't really give a fuck about the business side of things. And he's normally the one that deals with that. So this is my thing. If I'm Joe, right? And I'm the main one handling the business, and y'all don't ask about this, and y'all don't ask about that, and y'all don't try to be in meetings, and y'all don't try to have conversations, and y'all not there when I'm talking to the lawyers or talking to Ian or talking to whoever. In my head, y'all really don't give a fuck, right? Y'all don't really care about the business and keeping this shit afloat. Y'all just want to be able to do y'all part and keep it pushing, which is what employees do. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee, but that's what you guys are. You are employees. And now all of a sudden, now y'all want to make it that, oh well, why we don't know about this, or why we don't know about that, why y'all didn't make that clear a long fucking time ago. There's no reason why we're going into year 7/year 8 or whatever fucking year it is that y'all in, and y'all are just now realizing, oh, I don't know how the ad revenue is being divvied up. Oh, I don't know how much of a bag you got from Patreon. Not that they said all this, but this is stuff that like I'm coming off the top of my head. Oh, I don't know how much it is that we get off of YouTube. Oh, I don't know how much it is that we bring in as far as touring. Oh, I don't know how much we bring in as far as merch. That should have been a conversation that was had a long time ago. And that's why it leads me to believe that paperwork-wise, that y'all are probably listed as employees. And Joe is actually the owner, the boss, which is what we'll get to in a second. Now, let's see, what else? Maul implied, he did not say this, but Maul implied that he wasn't concerned about the business as much as Rory was. He did not say that. Let me get that clear. He did not say that. In my opinion, that's what he was inferring to, is that when it came to him personally, he did not give a fuck about the business part. He did not. But it seemed more so to me, from what he was saying, that Rory did a little bit more than he did, okay? So then we go and we get on to Parks and how he feels. Parks finally gets to talk without Joe cutting him the fuck off, okay? And Parks said that he felt like it was just all a really big misunderstanding, but he said at the end of the day, as far as them replacing people, that he feels like the show has to go on. Like he said, I have bills to pay. You got this person, that person, this person. All these people in here got bills to pay. They all have rent, and we can't all just stop working because of the fact that all three of y'all got into it and y'all can't figure it out. Y'all three not getting along. Is y'all all gonna pay our bills? Is y'all all gonna pay our rent? Y'all not, right? Okay, so the show must keep moving. And that's where I do agree wholeheartedly with Parks and Joe, because Joe said the same thing. Like, I think that's part of what Joe was getting frustrated with Maul, is because this is how, in my opinion, and probably in Joe's opinion, this is how I know you're not really a boss, because you're thinking at such a basic fucking level of just, oh, well, everything will be fine. This is the thing, Maul. You have the luxury of saying that money is not a problem because of who your brother is. And I wish that he would have, like, at least express that, or at least acknowledge that. You have the luxury of saying you don't care. He's talking about some, oh, I can always hustle and get another bag. Yeah, you can, but at the same time, your brother is who your brother is. Your brother ain't gonna never leave you out in these streets starving. So of course, for you, Maul, money is not a thing. But for somebody like Savon, somebody like Erickson, somebody like Screaming, who doesn't have Jay-Z's best friend as they damn brother, okay? They can't necessarily depend on that. This show might be the only thing that they have for real, as far as a substantial amount of money. I know Savon, I think Erickson like have their own podcast or something like that. But I know damn well they ain't bringing in enough money, bringing in as much money as they do working for the Joe Budden podcast. So again, when you're a boss at the end of the day, you have to make sacrifices, and you got to think of not just yourself. And I think that's where Maul in this whole situation was wrong. It was coming off very selfish. Very, very, very selfish. I understand what it looks like when Joe is putting other people ahead of y'all. I definitely get how that can look optics wise. It makes it feel like, oh, well, nigga, you saying that you don't really need me at the end of the day. You're saying that the show goes on regardless, which it does, but you're pretty much saying that you don't need me, you don't give a fuck, it is what it is. You'd rather just go on with yourself versus you'd rather go on with your business than to try to figure out whatever's going on with me and you. And unfortunately, Mom, I'm so very sorry, but that's how the real world works. And I think that's what Joe was inferring when he said, who else, what other person do you know? Because this is exactly what Joe was saying, in my opinion, when he was saying who gets to leave and come back. What he was saying is, what employee gets to just up and leave their job for 6 fucking weeks, tell the boss to kiss their ass and all of this other shit, and then still be able to come back to that same job? It does not happen for the average person. And I get Maul is trying to say, well, this is not that and this is not that, but it's still a business at the end of the day. Friendship or not, it's a fucking business. So things have to be handled business-wise. Things have to, again, I'm sorry, I really agree wholeheartedly with Joe and Parks. Y'all are not the only people on this show, okay? There's other people that makes bread off of this show. There's other people that has to eat because of the show. And that's why Parks fucking stay. That's why everybody else stay. Because, see, again, unlike you, Mom, we don't have a rich-ass brother to fall back on if shit hits the fan. My landlord don't care that y'all got into it. He want his rent when he want his rent. Okay? Right. So then, like I said, Parks goes on his whole thing about how he feel like the show must go on regardless. So then we get on to Joe. And like I said, at this point, Joe was super aggravated. Joe pretty much said like this: my question is, what do I owe y'all? What do I owe y'all for real? Like, on some real shit, what do I owe y'all? And Rory was like, I mean, well, as far as the friendship side, now this is the point that I did disagree with Joe. Rory was like, Rory and Maul both pretty much said like, at the end of the day, at least as friends, not the business side, but as friends, you owe us respect at the bare minimum. And Joe says that he feel like he doesn't. Now, that part I do feel like is a little crazy. I think Joe was getting a little caught up in semantics as far as like, oh, and entitlement. But I do feel like if you are friends with somebody, at the bare minimum, respect should be there. That's at the bare fucking minimum. We're not talking about business. We're talking about friendship, right? So as far as friendship is concerned, for Joe to feel as if you don't owe them to at least respect them, that's a little kind of crazy to me. And that's what I mean when I say Joe, Joe can probably be a really hard person to be friends with because he don't even get like simple shit like that. So, like I said, and then Maul says, you know, at the end of that little part, you know, that he just realizes that Joe doesn't move the same way that he does. And that's why I said, I feel like Maul is at the point where he's like, all right, I see exactly where Joe is. I see where he's standing. It just is what the fuck it is. So we go back to Joe, and Joe says that he was offended, that he gets offended every time Maul says that the show should have stopped because it's Joe's entire life. And again, I understand that fully. He's like, when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into everything, right? Like when you put your everything, like this podcast, this network, it's literally my lifeline. I don't have the option as the boss of all of this shit to just say, let me just stop, put it on pause, and let's figure out what we got going on. That's not how business works, my guy. If it was just simply friendship, that's one thing. But this is a business. There are other people, and like he said, y'all not getting the calls from sponsorships. Y'all not getting the calls from deals. I'm pretty sure there was plenty of people and business partners calling him being like, hey, what the hell is going on with y'all two? We was about to sponsor y'all, or we are sponsoring y'all. We gonna drop that shit if y'all don't get this together. And y'all not on the other side of that phone call. Y'all just doing whatever it is that y'all doing, chilling, being in y'all feelings, doing whatever the fuck it is that y'all doing. So I understand completely when Joe said that. Like I said, that's when Joe pretty much is like, this is where we really get into the nitty gritty, and where I feel like Joe is like pretty much just putting out there. Again, what other job can you leave and come back? Now this is where the contention comes in between Maul and Rory together, and then Joe, because Joe keeps saying that they left the show, right? That they decided to leave. However, that is kind of contradicting what Joe said when Joe admitted to saying, Joe said that he's the one who texted Rory and told him take the next couple podcasts off. So in that way, Joe, they didn't just leave because you told Rory not to come back in. That's what you did. Now, I don't know if you only meant for like a couple of days or whatever, but you did tell him not to come in. So that's not them leaving. And then they also said that all of them sat down and had a conversation, and everybody said that they was going to go their own separate ways for a month and then come back together. So I do think that that was a mute point that Joe kept bringing up, because if you're the one who initiated it, because he kept saying, oh, y'all wanted to shake the tree. But Joe, technically, you're the one who shook the tree because you're the one who initiated the conversation about Rory not coming to work, okay? And so, again, you know, Joe was pissed about that. Joe resents the fact that once they left, he had to pretty much scramble to try to get it together, okay? So what was said, I'm definitely gonna have to do another video. I'll be back, y'all. Okay, y'all, I'm back with part 2 for it. Okay, so this I should be able to wrap this up pretty fast. Okay, so remember how I was telling y'all about how they had the whole conversation, how Maul kept referencing throughout the whole, you know, conversation up to this point about it was what you said to me in the backyard. Once you said that to me, then I was done. Once you said that to me, I was done. And so apparently, eventually Maul, I guess, kind of gets a little aggravated with Joe and the shit that he's saying. So Maul says, Joe, you told me that this podcast was none of my business. That's what you told me. And when you told me that this podcast was none of my business, that's when I said, okay, well, like, I'm pretty much done. And Joe admitted that he shouldn't have said that or whatever. Now, again, I don't know. This is my interpretation. I feel like when Joe probably said to Maul, like, it's not, like, the podcast, like, it's not your business, I personally think that he probably meant it from the standpoint of, you can't tell me who can and cannot come in because you're not the boss, bitch. I'm the boss. I dictate who comes and goes in this bitch. Not you. Me. I do. So that's what I feel like he was saying. Joe then goes on to say that he felt the way for Maul, quote unquote, riding with Rory, and he felt like he should never ride for Rory, which I feel like is kind of immature in a way. Like, that's the immaturity in Joe to me, jumping out, like, and Maul ended up saying it wasn't really even that I was riding for Rory. I was just more so riding for the show. Like, if all three of us can't do it, like, then I wouldn't want to do it the same way if you said Parks couldn't come in and that person couldn't come in. Like, this is a collective effort. So it wasn't me coming for you. I was saying I would do that for anybody. But I do think that was like, I think it's immature of Joe to feel like, oh, you never supposed to have his back. Like, why would you ever ride for him? Why would you ever? I think that's very immature. That's just my fucking opinion. But again, like I said, Joe goes back to the whole thing about if we would have stopped, people wouldn't have got paid, okay? Maul goes in and says pretty much like, Joe, you was wrong as fuck for telling Rory that he couldn't come in. You was wrong. It's just that simple. You was fucking wrong. Joe, like I said, Joe feels like he has the authority to say to Rory, don't come in. And I'm pretty sure he does, because on paperwork, that's probably what the fuck it says. That's probably what it says, okay? That's probably what it says. And then Maul says that one of his main problems with Joe is that Joe did not explain to Rory why he couldn't come in. Because remember, I told you, when Joe texts Rory, don't come in, then Rory texts back why, and he was like, you didn't even explain to him why. You just said the same thing all over again, and I think that that's bullshit, which I agree. If you want to tell the man not to come in, at least explain to him why, okay? Okay. Then Joe pretty much says, I forgot what it was about, but I forgot, Maul said something, and then Joe said to him, but what does the contract say though? But what does the contract say? And Maul said, but you're talking to somebody who don't give a fuck about the contract. Okay, well, that's you. Like, that's you. And you can say that Joe doesn't care, but obviously Joe does. Obviously Joe does. If Joe didn't give a fuck about the contract, y'all wouldn't have any contracts. That's what a contract is for. So that if we get into anything, these are the clear, defined roles that everybody has. I, Joe Button, I am the owner. I am the proprietor. I'm the one who runs all of this shit. You and Rory and Parks and Erickson and Savon, y'all are all just employees that's working underneath me. Y'all work with me, but y'all don't do anything else other than work with me when it comes to things like that. Now, I don't know what they do behind the scenes. I'm just telling you what it seems like to me. Okay? Hold on. Sorry, yeah. So where am I at? Yeah, so that's what's up. So again, so like I said, I forgot what Maul said, but Joe said to him, but is that what the contract says? And Maul's like, well, you talking to somebody who don't give a fuck. But again, if Joe really didn't care about contracts, there wouldn't be contracts. And that's the problem. Y'all just be out here signing whatever. Oh, that's my friend. Oh, that's, well, I thought we was friends. Okay, but there's a difference between friendship and business. And again, I don't understand how Biggs is my brother and he still don't understand that. Your business should be in order. Period. Maybe y'all never had a fight or conversation about this ever again. I mean, in the past. But what are contracts for then? Are contracts just because, oh, let's just have something to fucking write down? No. If it says in writing that Joe is the sole proprietor owner and he makes the final decisions, and then even take it outside of that, if Joe outside of just talking on this podcast is doing the heavy lifting, so if he's the one talking to sponsorship, if he's the one getting in them rooms and in the meetings, if he's the one handling all of the contract negotiations, then he should, I'm sorry, have more say than the rest of y'all. These are the facts. The fact that y'all don't even know a lot about the business because Maul said out his own mouth, oh, the business is not transparent. If y'all out y'all own mouth have said that y'all don't get certain things that's going on with the business, then that leads me even more to believe that Joe is the main one handling everything. And if that's the case, he's the fucking boss. So what he say, go. Friends or not. I was friends when I worked at a call center, right, 5 years ago. My aunt was a supervisor there. But that doesn't mean I just got to do whatever the fuck it is that I wanted to do. She's still my boss. I don't get to come in and be like, oh, well, why'd you write me up? Because blah, 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 blah. Get out. Why did you write me up? And I thought we was better than that and we family. No, bitch. If you did wrong, you did wrong. So you get written up. It's just that simple, okay? So Joe ends up going off and kind of like what I just said. Joe went off because he feels like he went above and beyond to do, you know, he pretty much felt like he went above and beyond for this to work because he was like, who else do you know is, because he started going off about Rory. He was like, I'm literally, when I'm with my son, the days I have my son, I'm going to therapy and shit like that with Rory. Like, who the fuck else does that? Who the fuck else does that? So I feel what Joe was saying. Joe, oh, sorry. I skipped a part. Sorry. When I said earlier about Joe, when Maul and Joe had that little back and forth about the contracts, actually that happened after because Joe said, contractually, this was out of Joe's mouth. Joe said, because Maul was like, that's what it was. Maul was like, how are you trying to say like that this is not my business or whatever? And Joe said, but contractually, is it your business, Maul? And he said, I'm not talking about contracts. That's what happened. That was the conversation. And again, that's why Joe threw up his hands like, well, what do you want me to do? We can't run business off of friendships, my guy. This whole shit would have crumbled if that's the case. If y'all want more ownership, if y'all want more stake, get y'all lawyers involved, have them drop the papers for Joe and get it popping in court. But where y'all stand now, if y'all didn't do it before, I understand Joe's frustration to being like, so now all of a sudden you motherfuckers want to pop up and be like, oh, I get this and oh, I get that. That's why I feel like Joe keeps saying, why do y'all feel entitled? Like, what do I owe y'all? What do I owe y'all for real? Because I don't. Y'all have contracts, y'all signed them. Now all of a sudden it's an issue. I 110% feel him. I feel him. Maul was like, he don't care about that. He don't care about contracts. And that's the fucking issue, Maul, that you don't care, okay? Joe felt the way about Maul unfollowing him. And Maul said that he pretty much unfollowed him because he didn't want to see the show looking like shit. Let's be real. You just don't want to see somebody else in your spot. Because the show actually wasn't that bad with Ice and Ish on it. It just wasn't, okay? Maul pretty much stands by the fact that the show should have stopped when they left or whatever. Joe keeps going on the fact that he keeps saying that they left, and Rory keeps and Maul keeps saying we didn't leave, we all agreed to sit down. Yeah, and again, so it pretty much just ends with Maul saying that he wanted more transparency in the business and he wanted respect, and Joe sticks by the fact that he felt like both of them abandoned the show. And that's just kind of where the whole situation ends at, okay? That's just kind of where the whole situation ends. So y'all get in the comments and y'all tell me what y'all think. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to this simple little thing right here. read your contracts. Read your contracts, get your contracts in order. If it does not say, if it is legal, if in contracts it legally says that Joe Budden is the sole owner, okay, that he the boss, all this complaining, as far as I'm concerned, needs to stop, and y'all motherfuckers need to get back to work. And that's just that on that. I'm out. Bye.